Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. And as you know how we do it here, we welcome our guests and we thank you for coming because we know, Tom, that this is your time and time is precious. It is also your giving of your energy. You are entrusting us with your story, your journey, and we just want to say thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. Tell us about who you are and what you have done. I say that we are creators, so tell the people the things that you have created.
Okay. Ken, thanks for the invitation. I am a Scalar Light researcher, a quantum energy researcher. My name is Tom Paladino, and I've developed scalar energy instruments. These instruments allow me to access the dimension of scalar energy, or what some people call quantum energy or zero-point energy. Now, it's pertinent to point out that this is not an electromagnetic instrument. I don't work with electricity and magnetism. So the point I'm making is that there's two dimensions. There are two realities. And the dimension that I prefer to work in is a scalar energy dimension, which I think is unlimited potential. It's the free energy from the sun and the stars. So you take that into consideration. I've developed scalar energy instruments that allow me to access another dimension. And in so doing, I can do so many things in that other dimension that I cannot achieve easily in an electromagnetic dimension.
Oh, that is awesome, man. We're going to get into some of that because I want to know what happened to cause you to head in that direction. Tom, I want you to talk about your childhood so you can introduce us to this young man as he begins his life and what was that background like and how was it?
I would say the scientific impetus was Nikola Tesla. As a youngster, I would read about the work of Nikola Tesla, the great scientist, and I knew instinctively that many of his inventions were quantum inventions or scalar energy inventions. So with that path, with that trajectory, I decided to follow Nikola Tesla's work and study his inventions, study his theories. And today I've arrived at an understanding of what Tesla had achieved over 100 years ago.
That is awesome, man. So walk us through, college. How was your family life? Talk to me about your family life, siblings, stuff like that.
I had two great Christian parents, God bless. I had a normal childhood. I had what I consider a rather broad-based academic career. I thank God that I had the professors and the teachers that I had. And up to the point of, say, age 35, 36, I was still involved with collegiate study. Thereafter, I decided to go alone with scalar energy research. And the reason I say that, there's very few pioneers in this field. So I had to leave academia behind, and I had to study on my own and invent and discover. And because it's such a narrow focus right now, it's such a narrow field of expertise out there, I had to develop the expertise, and I had to become the expert in this science. It's been a 35-year grind, trek, call it what you will, but it's been well worth it. It's not easy. When it involves groundbreaking research, it's everything is labor intense, but it's been worth it.
Talk to me. How old were you when you had the leaning towards the science and the questioning of, or the one thing to know, as they say? How old were you?
At a very young age. It was a gift from God. It's a gift of the Holy Spirit. Even I remember as a first grader, I would question things, and I would say to myself, well, how I don't accept that explanation. That I don't accept that conventional explanation. So I started to dig deep, even as a child. And I would say even at the age of 10 or 11, 12 years old, when I was reading about Nikola Tesla, I said to myself, well, the world is missing it. This man is onto something incredible. And later in his life, Tesla was no longer working with electricity. Tesla was working with radiant energy or zero-point energy. And I say frequently that this is the reason his work has never been duplicated. You cannot take an electrical instrument and perform a scalar energy function. So later in Tesla's life, he was working exclusively with this massless energy, scalar energy, chi, prana. And I think the world will eventually realize that Tesla discovered another source of energy.
Well, I know there's been, from my readings, I believe he did. And I want to talk to you about your dealing with that mindset, Thomas, because you're moving forward. You started studying at a young age, and you went into academia. You got your degrees and so forth. How was it functioning within that framework and still have this this desire, this one thing to know, leaning towards Tesla's work? How were you able to manage within that framework? Because you had to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
You said you left after a while, but how did you manage?
Yeah, you have to believe in God. You have to believe in yourself. And if you see the error in the world, you try and correct that. But you don't become overwhelmed with the mistakes of the world. And again, just to underscore the matter, even though I was in college for 15, 16 years, I took the classes that would have bent me. I did not follow the career path, so to speak, in college. And obviously, I'm not following the career path now. And, a lot of people might be ponder about my statement, but if you see the truth and you can follow that truth, and it makes your life so much more rewarding. I think recently many people realize that the powers that be, government, some people in science, some people in academia, have lied to us, and that there's a narrative that they're spinning for their control. Well, see, Nikola Tesla never got involved in politics, nor do I, because I'm not naive. If you follow the science, science is always true. Truth is reality, reality is truth. And I follow Scalar Light science. There can be no lies in the laws of science. The laws of science are immutable. And that's what makes my life so rewarding.
Yeah, they can.
You cannot get caught up in a lie. If you truly follow the laws of science, it will not permit any lie.
I agree with you. And that is why they try not to allow true science to manifest, because we saw the breaking away from that in when they came on and start saying that we were from these kind of different places of other animals and whatever. And so, but true science will always, in my mind, will always prove that there was a design behind it. The reason why, when you look to the quantum level, everything works in conjunction with something. There's something beyond. It's just not happenstance. And so, as you're pursuing the truth, and there's a little scripture in the Bible that says, "The truth shall make you free." It's going to set you free because it'll free you from all the programming that is being programmed by people. So you got a chance to see this programming, and within the educational system, Tom, how did you manage as a young man? Were you frustrated? What are those things that you had to overcome to not allow the lie of the educational system within the science arena to get hold of you?
God bless my dad. My dad, frankly, educated me about the Illuminati. And I understood how the Illuminati was in control of so many things, including the curriculum in schools. If you really look at history, the Rockefellers financed many of the universities. Why? So that this circular wheel would support itself. You have the educational system, then you have the drug manufacturing, you have the oil industry, and it all abets itself in one gigantic monopolistic wheel. It's a gigantic monopoly. So if you really look at much of what's being promoted today, whether government or academia, it's advancing a one world agenda. And that one world agenda is not necessarily true. It's designed to abet, to at least continue the control of the Illuminati over the population. But you really have to know what you're looking for. And you cannot just accept everything that the media promulgates. You have to realize that many media stations are owned and controlled by the Illuminati.
And their signs, their symbols are all over the place, and you just have to look for it. You have to know what it looks like, as we see it in the banking system with the colors and so forth. And so as
Right.
you become aware of what's happening, and you saw some of this, you were exposed to some of that, your dad made you aware of the programming. How did you manage, Tom, with some of, as you began to lean on this pull? Because I know you had mentioned God had you, and if he has you in this pull, that pull is there when you're sleeping, when you're waking, and he's
Yeah.
slowly bringing you to a place that he wants you to look to him basically as your teacher and began to open
Yes.
principles beyond what is being taught within the
Yeah.
secular system. How did you make that
Yeah.
transition? It took you 30 something years. And
Yeah.
how did it make you feel? Were you nervous? I mean,
Yeah.
because you got to deal with a couple of things. How
Right.
did you feel with that?
I never felt nervous. I thank God that I could study in the academic setting and accept some of the principles and some of the discoveries of academia, but be able to distinguish what was false, such as, to be blunt,
Yeah,
Darwinian evolution.
garbage. Yeah.
That's false. If people realized that Charles Darwin was financed by the Rothschilds, then they would see the
Yeah.
narrative that's being
Hmm.
spun. But what's my point? It only made me keener, smarter to be able to distinguish between the truth
Hmm.
and the lie. And thank God that I had that presence of the Holy Spirit. I see many people in academia, they don't realize that their career is a path that was decided upon
Yeah.
by the
Hmm.
Rothschilds or the
Yeah.
Illuminati. And I stand by that statement. If you really take a close look at this, you'll see that much of the narrative today, either in academia or the media, serves the purpose of the
Hmm.
one world order.
It is to, they're preparing the masses for, as they say, they believe much different than you and I believe. If I go into that, it'll probably scare some of the people, the belief that is
Yeah.
governing why they're doing what they're doing. And when you know their core belief, and when you look at the system, then you understand, yeah, I get it. So here you are, he's beginning to move you aside. You made that jump, Tom. You're all by yourself as far as a physical body.
Correct.
You got no support as
Correct.
far as colleagues and all of
Correct.
these type things once you've made that switch. How was it, and what steps did you take to move forward once you did that?
Yeah. Step by step. You're absolutely right. It's a
Yeah.
singular path. It's a solitary lifestyle. And if you can at least understand that and accept that, you
Yeah.
will thrive. I thrive. Every day, I don't
Mm-hmm.
paper shuffle. I have advances every day. I have
Yeah.
discoveries every day. I have meaningful
Yeah.
progress. However, if you look at the world today, because there's so much politics involved, to me, it's a
Mm-hmm.
circular path. People walk in circles. And this is why we're not achieving the advances we should be achieving. It's designed, the modern day system is designed as a model of futility. Well, if you pursue the truth, and I do with my research, and yes, it is a
Mm-hmm.
solitary path, you make progress. I'm alone, but it's still
Well,
progress.
you don't have that many people that are saying it's not possible.
Right.
So you
Right.
working on,
And you can't listen to that
yeah,
nonsense. Very good, Ken. A lot of people have disparaged my work, and I say, well, you're entitled
yeah,
to your opinion. It has no psychological
yeah.
shift for me. I just
And
move
I tell
on.
people it is simply when someone comes and says something derogatory about you and about what you are, that it is your process and your progress by which you're walking your journey. It is not their journey.
Yeah,
So you just look at them and go, wow, that's not, it doesn't bother me. Don't, it's simply an opinion. Don't give it any value. Know your personal value. Know your vision. Or you made a statement, and this is what I tell people, Tom, about finding a statement of faith. You were a young man when you found your statement of faith, when you started to study Tesla's work and so forth, and you said to him, you said to yourself, this man has it right. And then from that statement that you made, because you believed it as a young man, it governed your life. It began to cause you to do things, began to do research, put in the work to get to the answers as to what does that look like being right. So here you are, and because I want you and I'm going to keep bringing you on, Tom, so that you can expound even more so about your discovery,
Yes.
because I believe everyone needs to know more so about it. So we're going to talk, but in this podcast, I wanted to lay the foundation so that people can get to know
Thank you.
who you are, how did you come about this process, what were the tools, what caused you to hunt this down to get the answers. And so here you are, you've stepped out, you're all alone, and the forerunners are always by themselves, and you have to look at yourself as a forerunner within the space that is currently in our generation. Tesla back there, he had a couple of companies with him as also, but
Yes.
I'm sure, Thomas, you're going to get a couple of people that will start heading your way. But right now, you're the forerunner. As the forerunner, Tom, how did you begin to implement some of these studies as you read from the books and now putting them into the practice, the lab piece?
God had his hand in everything. I was so fortunate to meet a family by the name of the Hieronymus family. Now, the inventor, I never met the inventor, but Galen Hieronymus was an inventor of scalar energy instruments. And back in the 90s, I was able to purchase scalar energy instruments from the Hieronymus family. Since now they've all passed. The point is, I had a head start, if you will, with scalar energy research. Galen Hieronymus is one of the few bona fide scalar energy researchers. And why do I say that? Well, in order to be a bona fide researcher, you have to have a scalar energy instrument. And there are very few scalar energy instruments that I've ever seen. There's a lot of people who claim that they have scalar energy instruments. They don't. They have electrical ones. So the point is, if you're going to access that other dimension, scalar energy, you have to have a scalar energy instrument. Hieronymus actually had a U.S. patent for a scalar energy instrument, and I followed that path. And he was right. Hieronymus, even though most people have never heard of Galen Hieronymus, was a genius. He was another Tesla, but obviously his work has been disparaged and undermined. He's just a footnote in history.
So here you are, and I want you to talk to this because, and you and I in the onset, we had a conversation about scalar energy. And in the book of Genesis was the introduction of scalar energy on the planet. And when God shows up, he created the sun, and the sun has the information that needs to be transposed to the tree, to the plants, and the plants have that. And then he had to create these lights, these major lights, in order to be able to transmit information for the water to function. We have low tide, high tide, based on all of the information that the waters on the planet is receiving, as well as we talk about the sun sending the information of the plant, and you and I depositing vitamin D in our bodies, and all the other messages that is done on a global scale through this particular energy. Talk to us a little about how did you get a chance to dig into some of that information and extract a piece of there.
You're right. The Bible is always correct. When God said, "Be light made," he was speaking specifically of scalar light. Why? Well, before you have creation, you need instructions. So you need light, specifically scalar light, to instruct the universe. And I always use this analogy. If you're going to build a home, you need architectural plans. Okay, what builder would show up on a job site and say, "Well, there's no architectural plans, just go ahead and build"? No, the house won't be to your liking. I can guarantee you the office won't be to your liking. You need plans, architectural plans. So when God said, "Be light made," those are the architectural plans for the universe. In other words, light, scalar light, gives instructions, building instructions for everything. And it only makes sense. The intelligence precedes the physical action.
Absolutely. And that is why the plants know what energy to take and create oxygen, what energy to release. I mean, all of these things and this information, this dance that is not exposed to the mind, to the eyes, is happening as a result of this exchange with light. And we see that even in plants. They said put this plant in sunlight and all these different things. We see these different things happening, but not to the level by which you are now expounding it and bringing it to a reality, so that people like myself can have an understanding of that this energy, this type of energy, is at play, and it is accessible to be used to cause certain things to happen to this earth, which is our body, which is a part of this whole plan, that this type of energy can then come into our lives and change it. I want you to talk to all of us and educate us, Tom, about what this type of tool can be used for to get us get things in our life.
Okay. Well, in particular, I've narrowed my focus with scalar energy. I actually work with people around the world by their quantum field. People will email me their photograph, and I actually insert a photograph of a person inside my instrument. And when I do that, I can access their brain waves. I can access their 7 chakras. Now, keep in mind, this is not electricity. So I'm working in a different dimension than that of electromagnetic energy. So people will email me photographs from around the world. I can access their brain waves, which are non-physical. I can access their 7 chakras or their meridian system, which is non-physical. So this is the scalar energy action upon the non-physical.
Excellent. And talk about some of the benefits that one can receive as a result of having access to all of that.
When people send their photograph to me, we offer 15 days of free sessions. And in so doing, people can experience this novel technique that I've developed. Well, by having your chakras balanced, people say that they sleep better, that they have an uninterrupted sleep, a very deep, meaningful sleep. I always have a deep, meaningful sleep, and I have dreams, vivid dreams. Many people will say that they have a spirit of elation, or they feel tranquil or calm during this chakra balancing. So if you can imagine this powerful energy entering into your mindset, into your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, balancing your meridians, and doing it all by way of your photograph in the quantum realm, well, then we've arrived at this new science in which we can address spiritual and mental health. Spiritual and mental health. Because I believe light, scalar light, is the main driver, is the animating force behind spiritual and mental health.
Well, they have, it is believed that we are, the spirit man is illuminous, and it is more, you hear people giving the testimony that when they had a near-death experience, and I had interviewed a woman that she interviewed thousands of people, and they were talking about this. As they're pulled deeper into the spiritual realm, they're seeing more of light than anything else. And so, and we know that God talks, Jesus talks about that, about light and the light of, he talks about the introduction of light coming into the world. And then from this light, we are able to achieve certain things. So let's go a little about some of those things that you had to overcome, Tom, because I know all these voices that people were saying to you, and you had perfect opportunity to mire in the mess that they were sending and throwing at you. But how did you handle and walk your way through, and what tools did you use to handle that?
That's a very good question. To be blunt, it really never fazed me. The impact that it has is it amazed me. It amazed me that some are so close-minded that some people cannot consider that there is another way of looking at reality. So that, it was very painful. If anything, it was painful to me to see people make the same mistakes, trying to fit the square peg into the round hole. And it's like, if you can't understand science presently, well, then our definition of science or our understanding of science is flawed. And that's what we see in this world. There's 2 sciences, electromagnetic and scalar science. So there's two explanations for
Yeah.
the universe. Anyway, again, I don't waste too much time on it. It really, sometimes it just knocks me off my feet how some people can be so close-minded. But I just have to move on. You cannot let them drag you down. So to this day, I'm 62 years old. To this day, I'm the only scalar energy researcher out there that's pursuing this path. Now that tells you what a solitary path this is. It's not as if I'm hiding my research. I don't know of anybody else who's devoted the time and effort as I am.
Yeah, because they don't want that information, would they? But, we know that there's several different, as far as dimension. We have the angels. They're able to transition from one to another. We know that the only reason why you and I are here in this dimension is simply because the body keeps us here on this planet. But we know that once we release this body, we are then able to move from this dimension into the other dimension. And so as a pioneer, I'm telling you, that's a lonely place to be in, especially in this particular field when you're coming against a lot of the current belief system.
Ken, you're right. You're a great psychologist. It is lonely, but I don't mind it. See, some people, it might drive them crazy. And I've gotten to the point where I say, well, I've got a great wife. I have a few friends. Yeah. I'm not lonely. I'm not lonely. If I'm disparaged, if they put me on the back shelf, that's fine. Yeah. I'm not lonely.
But the Bible tells us gives us clues about certain things. I know we had talked about you had gotten that information from a family. It talks about precept upon precept and building on a thought, building on a belief system, and what you're up against with your discovery and what you are pursuing, and with who is guiding your pursuit. I think it would be advantageous for people to come your way and begin to seek out your insight, because your teacher, in other words, is coming from God himself. And so the Bible says, he said, call on me and I will show you great and mighty things. So here he is, he's showing you stuff that those that are not of his kingdom are not willing to put in the time that it takes to bring the knowledge and the insight and the revelation. So I want you to talk about, give us an example, Tom, of someone that when you first start experimenting, as they say, with this particular discovery and some of the stories that they were giving to you.
Okay. Now, and I say this in all candor, and I hold no grudges. There was a university professor, and I started to explain to him the invention of Hieronymus. Now, keep in mind, Hieronymus had a storied career, and he actually had the U.S. patent for this scalar energy instrument. So the professor asked me, well, then how does this work? Well, I went on to say, well, you place a photograph inside the instrument, and the photograph has energy signatures. And the gentleman just stared at me, and he walked out of the room. I've never seen him since. So, for a couple seconds, I was somewhat baffled me. But, in retrospect, it just wasn't for him, because he's stuck with Newtonian physics. He can't accept that there's another physics, which is scalar physics.
Jesus said this, and I tell people this all the time. He made a statement, Tom: those who have ears, let them hear. So your message is not for everyone. It is for those that are listening with different apparatus than the ears, because he's speaking to something else other than the natural ear of that person, because he says those who have ears, and we know that everyone was standing there had some ears on their head, but he must have been talking about something totally different. So your grouping is from a different culture, maybe. We talked about that. And again, it's the programming of society as a whole that you have to penetrate, especially Western society, because Western society frowned upon something simple as meditation. And I know Christianity frowned on meditation, and yet I read that I meditate on the word day and night. And so you cannot take, and again, I try to separate Eastern Christianity's belief system from Western Christianity system. Western Christianity told me that when I meditated, Tom, that I would allow demons to jump inside of me. But Eastern Christianity said that that's okay for me to meditate. And so I wanted to go because Jesus came from an Eastern culture, and I wanted to meditate and put the word inside of me because he said, meditate on my word day and night. So
Exactly. It's a matter of what you
yeah,
meditate on. Are you meditating upon Christ?
Yeah.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. If you meditate upon the evil or something that's opposed to God, you're in trouble.
You draw what you are meditating on, the energy that you're pulling. It is your responsibility to meditate because he's very specific. Meditate on my word day and night. He tells you how long, when, and so then we have to be obedient and go ahead. So I want you to talk about, I know you mentioned that story with the gentleman that did that. I think that's so funny. Talk to us about one of your first clients that when you introduced this into their lives that brought them success.
Yeah. Here's a great example. I was working with an infant. The child was maybe, well, not quite an infant, maybe a year and a half old. And I was able to work through the quantum field of the photograph. I'm able to identify bacteria, parasites on the quantum field. This child had a significant bacterial infection. So working with this 1-year-old child, I was able to eradicate pathogens, viruses, bacteria, fungi, and the child recovered. The turnaround was dramatic. And I said to myself, well, there's something here now. Because if I can direct action to a photograph and I could see, at least detect on my photograph, the presence of a bacterium and the eradication of a bacterium, well, there's something profound here. Now, I have to say this. I work in a remote laboratory with photographs, so I never can predict the outcome with people. That I can't prove that yet.
Yeah.
But this is a new science. If people ask me, show me exactly how a photograph translates to a person at a distance, I can't. I can't. It's a new science. And you have to consider a scalar energy instrument. If it has an action at a distance, then that's a scalar energy action at a distance. Anyway, long and short of it, I let people tell the story. My website has 3,000 testimonies from people around the world. That tells the story of this new science.
That's the only place that would be able to get it from is from them. The testimonial of that family that had the issue with the baby, the testimonial coming from all the people across the world. And we had talked a little about the belief system, and I had talked about the belief system, and I had just did a teaching a couple of days ago. Jesus comes, Martha and Mary are there in the house. He shows up on the scene. Lazarus is dead. He sits down and he starts to talk to Martha. He says, Lazarus is going to rise again. She said, yeah, I know he's going to rise at the end of days and so forth. And he says, no. I am the resurrection and the life. I'm the guy that is going to control all of this. And he says to her, do you believe that I can do this? And so you have to, what you're doing because of this newness, here he was. And he asked her, do you believe? And she says, yeah, I believe that. And she began to make the confession. The reason why I said that, Thomas, is that you are dealing with a new thing. And she was dealing with a new thing. This guy just standing in front of her. And the question is that, do you believe? Because once you believe, I know for a fact that your desired outcome will manifest. And so how are you finding how people are affected to those who believe in your work, even though it is a new thing?
Here's an example. Let's say I work with one person in the family by way of their photograph, and that person speaks of their experience with family members or friends. So it's a grassroots movement, so to speak. And much like when Jesus was preaching, it was all grassroots. And this has taught me something. You don't go from the top down. You go from the bottom up, which is people. Or maybe it's just a horizontal plane. I don't know. But the long and short of it is you work with people. That way there's no impediment. You don't have to deal with the board of directors. You don't have to deal with the government. You don't have to deal with academia. You work with one person at a time because you cannot stifle one person at a time. It's decentralized. When you're working through government or academia, it's centralized. So God had a decentralized approach of working with everybody. And that's why what's one of the reasons why Christianity worked. And that's my approach.
Pulling out of and that's what you did in your took you 30 something years to pull out of it and begin your process of dealing with the families on their own. So what I want I want you to talk about your program, the free program, so that you make the audience aware that it's there for them.
So this is a new science. So what do? Well, we have to prove it, or we have to at least give people an experience. My website is scalarlight.com. Anybody in the world can visit the website, and you're going to email us your photograph. That's all we need is a facial shot. And then ask your family members if they want to join. And they can join likewise. And sometimes I highly encourage people to include their pets, because your dogs and your cats have quantum health. And let's see if we can improve the quantum health of your dogs and your cats. And after the 15-day experience, many people are believers. This is a new science. I don't know of anybody in the world who has these type of instruments. They don't. They're unique instruments. So my approach is unique instruments with a unique approach. So with that in mind, it's all about the experience. The 15-day free trial is the experience.
That's excellent. Tom, I want to thank you for coming, man. And this is going to be the beginning of our conversation. I just wanted to use this particular podcast to lay that foundation so that people can see where it came from, what it is, and so forth. And as we continue this conversation, we will going to get a little more in depth about all the different things that you can apply it for. And I just want to thank you so much, sir, for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you, Ken.